Today we have Luke chapter 8, verses 16 onwards. We have here a nice passage. It says, "No one, after lighting a lamp, covers it with a vessel or puts it under a bed, but puts it on a stand that those who enter may see the light. For nothing is hid that shall not be made manifest, nor anything secret that shall not be known and come to light. Take heed then how you hear. For to him who has will more be given, and from him who has not, even what he thinks he has will be taken away." So here we have three different verses. The first part tells us about our Christian faith. You cannot cover yourself or hide yourself. No, a Christian is someone who has to be visible. So no matter how humble your position, we should never be ashamed to show ourselves as Christians to the world. So when Jesus says the lamp is meant to shine, you and I are meant to stand out in a crowd as people who really know the Master. The second thing talks about secrecy. It's impossible to keep certain things secret, no? So usually we hide. That is, one is our own selves. We hide ourselves from seeing certain things. For instance, someone who's got a very serious illness, this person doesn't want to accept the fact that he's suffering from this illness. He's trying to cover it up. But it's such a folly, isn't it, when you say that I can't see my sickness, I don't have the sickness, to deny the fact that you have this illness. We have to look at it in the face and then try to get rid of it rather than saying, I'm okay, I don't have any problem. So we try to hide things from our own selves. We shut our eyes and try to behave as if nothing is wrong when there is a clear symptom of an illness. But rather, we should try to see how to get over it by first accepting the fact that yes, I have this problem and I have to get rid of it. Second thing is we hide things from people, from others, and we know that people who try to hide things, somehow that will come to light. And whenever you try to hide something from people, they can see it in your face. You may try to hide something, but your face will somehow show out the fact that, you're not being true to yourself. So, anyone who is open to people, anyone who, opens his life to everyone, that is a person who is really happy. But anyone who tries to cover up something can never live a happy and truthful life. And therefore, we will do well to open ourselves and keep ourselves open in front of people rather than covering it up. And finally, we can try to hide things from God. And we know it's not possible to hide anything from God because God is someone who can see everything. And therefore, we would do well, to keep everything open. That is why Jesus says, nothing is hid that shall not be made manifest. Therefore, trying to have secrecy, trying to cover things up, trying not to be truthful is something we need to avoid and always show ourselves as we are. That is when the truth is revealed, and that is when, our life is lived to the full. And then Jesus says about someone who has, more will be given, and from him who has not, what he has will be taken away. This is a universal law which we see. Someone, for instance, who is physically fit, who keeps training himself, he will be able to do more and more things. But someone who is lazy, his body becomes flabby, and whatever little strength he has will keep diminishing day after day. So, also with someone who is learning, anyone who stops learning will slowly begin to lose his knowledge, will forget whatever he has learned. But someone who's constantly desirous of learning more and more, he will grow greater and greater in knowledge. So that is the fact that Jesus is trying to say, that the seeker will always find, but the man who stops seeking will lose even what he thinks he has. Therefore, what we need to understand is the Christian life is a life where we either go forward or we will go backward. There is no standing still. You are either going forward or you'll go backward. It's like a treadmill. If you are not living your faith actively every day, if you're not pursuing your faith every day, then you will backslide. There is no question of, reaching a point and staying there. We have to keep going on and on. Then we come to verse 19 to 21. We have this incident of the mother and brothers of Jesus coming to him. Then his mother and his brothers came to Jesus, but they could not reach him for the crowd. And he was told, "Your mother and your brothers are standing outside, desiring to see you." But he said to them, "My mother and my brothers are those who hear the word of God and do it." Now, this is a very difficult passage. It seems as if Jesus is saying, who are my mother and brothers? No, not these people, but it's those who hear the word of God. He doesn't deny the fact that, yes, his mother is there and his family, his relatives are all there. But what Jesus is trying to tell us is something very important. He says, two things. There is a loyalty which surpasses all earthly loyalty. You know, Jesus is saying that a person's heart should be focused only on Jesus. So we can only love one person at a time. So if our love for Jesus is shared by other people, if we cannot love Jesus wholeheartedly, single mindedly, if our attention is divided, then we cannot really serve Jesus. And at the same time, if we serve Jesus wholeheartedly and we follow his will every day, the whole world becomes my family. See, that is the beautiful thing. So Jesus is saying that everyone is included in the kingdom. You're all my brothers and sisters. Every one of you who listens to my word and keeps my word, you are my family, Jesus says. So it's not just my physical family alone, he says. That is important. It is all of you, every one of you who keeps my will, who does my will, he becomes my family. So this incident that is given to us is to show to us how important it is for us to be loyal to Jesus, to be faithful to him. And when we really follow the Lord wholeheartedly and we do what is pleasing to him every day, the whole world becomes my family and I really get included in the kingdom and I become part of the family of saints in heaven. So, isn't that something so beautiful, no? Now we come to a very important, very beautiful passage from verses 22 to 25. One day, Jesus got into a boat with his disciples and he said to them, "Let us go across to the other side of the lake." So they set out, and as they sailed, he fell asleep. And a storm of wind came down on the lake, and they were filling with water and were in danger. And they went and woke him, saying, "Master, Master, we are perishing." And he awoke and rebuked the wind and the raging waves, and they ceased, and there was a great calm. He said to them, "Where is your faith?" And they were afraid, and they marveled, saying to one another, "Who then is this, that he commands even wind and water, and they obey him?" Here's a beautiful passage which shows us that Jesus has power over nature. See, he has power over the sea. He's able to calm the violent and stormy sea. Now, it is very interesting also to see Jesus sleeping, no? Usually, when we think of Jesus, he's someone who is always active, always preaching, always healing, always, walking. He's always on the move, he's always active. But here we see a Jesus who is so tired, so human. And here he is fast asleep. And in the Gospel of Mark, it would say, he was asleep on a cushion. So we have here a lovely picture of the sleeping Jesus, tired, exhausted, you know, and therefore he falls asleep naturally. And then the storms of Galilee. The Sea of Galilee is very famous for these storms because the Sea of Galilee is 600 feet below sea level. And so it's surrounded by mountains, by huge mountains. And as a consequence, suddenly you have these storms. And it would seem very tumultuous, very dangerous for people who are at sea. And through this little story, the writer wants to give us a very important message. He wants to show us who Jesus is and how we have to live our lives. You look at this picture now, it is not so much on the miracle itself. The emphasis, the stress is not so much on Jesus calming the storm. Okay. And also, it is not so much that the disciples did not have faith. You see, they did not lose their faith and go away. They are with Jesus. Remember, they are not somewhere else. They have not left Jesus and gone. They are with Jesus. The disciples are still following him. Now, what we see here is a figurative image. It's the storm, which is a picture of the tribulation that the disciples will have in the days ahead. In the days to come, they're going to face tribulation. And the boat is a frail image of the church. You see? So we have Jesus here in the center, and he is reproaching them. That is what we see here. He says, "O men of little faith, you are giving importance more to the threat than to my authority as Lord." You see, all of us will have storms. All of us will go through turbulence, temptations, and problems. What is Jesus saying? Don't focus on the problem. Don't focus on the storm. Look at me. Jesus is with us. And when Jesus is with us, we have nothing to fear. That is why Jesus says, don't be afraid. Where is your faith? When I am with you, the storms may rage. You may have problems. You may have temptations, but don't look at them. They will all pass away. Look at me, Jesus says. Our focus needs to be on Jesus rather than on the storm. Because the storm, when you look at it, will be very frightening. When you look at things that happen around you, they may frighten you. They may shake you up. But Jesus says, remember, your focus should be on me and not on the problem. So that is the message Jesus gives us through this little incident. So therefore, it is not a crisis of faith. They're not abandoning the master. They continue to call for help. They're there, but then their eyes, their focus is on the sea. They're looking there and they're getting worried. You see, Jesus is with them and yet they are afraid. Jesus says, look at me, focus on me. Isn't that a beautiful lesson for us? So often we forget that Jesus is with us. Although we have seen his miracles, although we have seen his power in our lives, time and again, today when I face a difficult situation, I forget the past. I forget about Jesus. I forget He is there. And I keep worrying. I keep getting anxious. I'm troubled and disturbed. I'm filled with fear. Why? Because I'm looking at the problem. I'm not looking at Jesus. While the problems and the storms are raging around me, I need to remember that Jesus is with me in my boat. There's a beautiful song which says, with Jesus in my boat, I can smile in the storm. I need to smile in the storm. Aren't we crying? Aren't we panicking when there is a storm? We lose all our faith, we lose all that we have in our heads, and we go crazy when there is a storm. We forget everything, right? What does Jesus say? Stay calm. Be calm, he says. Be calm. What he's telling the sea, he's also telling me. He's telling me, you be calm. Let the storm rage. The storms of temptations, the storms of death, the storms of illnesses, the storms of pain and torture. All these are very true, or very hard, very painful. Yes, there's no denying this. But then, when I focus on Jesus, I will feel His invisible hand lifting me up. I will feel His hand lifting me above my problems. I will still be able to hold my head high when I cannot understand what I'm going through. When I cling on to the Master and believe that He is there with me, I will no longer look at the problem. When my eyes are fixed on Jesus, the problems will fade away. My fears will disappear. This is the truth. So all of us will be hit by a storm. All the people in the world, whether you're a disciple or not, whether you're good or bad, whether you're faithful or unfaithful, whoever you are, the storms will hit us. But what we need to look at and focus on is Jesus. And when we cling on to Him and when we put our trust in Him and say, Lord, I know that even now you are with me, like the psalmist in Psalm 23, when he says, although I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for thou art with me. The Lord is with me in my problem. The Lord is with me in my pain. Doesn't the Lord know what I'm going through? So when I look at Jesus and say, Lord, even in this moment of crisis, I know you are there for me. The Lord is going to lift me up. The storms will disappear and my fears will vanish. Let's continue to focus on Jesus.